The girl from the red hills. The village of Kehoro sat nestled between the winding river Nalu and the rose-colored hills that glowed like fire when the sun dipped low. It was a peaceful place, where children chased goats through dust and laughter filled the air like birdsong. In Kehoro, every evening was sacred. As the sky turned gold, the people gathered beneath the great baobab tree, their hearts eager for stories. And no one told them better than Grandmother Muna. She was older than the hills, or so it was said. Her hair was silver as moonlight, her eyes full of storms and secrets. Children sat cross-legged around her, their eyes wide and ears hungry. Even the grown ones leaned in, pretending they were only passing by. But none listened more closely than Ebo, a 19-year-old with fire in his heart and wanderlust in his soul. Ebo was no ordinary village boy. While others were content to herd goats or mend nets, Ebo climbed cliffs, explored caves, and studied the rhythm of the river. But above all, he listened to Grandmother Muna. One night, under a sky heavy with stars, she spoke of the Okoye. "There are those," she said, voice low and thick like tamarind honey, "who walk among us wearing human skin. But they are not of flesh and bone as we are. No. Beneath their smiles are scales. Beneath their beauty is venom." The fire cracked. The children shivered. Even the wind seemed to hush. "They come every 100 years, she continued. "They charm, they deceive. And when the time is right, they take a soul." Ebo's brow furrowed. "How can we tell who they are, Nana?" Grandmother Muna smiled a smile that knew too much. "You cannot," she said. "Until it's too late." The next morning, Ebo was walking along the riverbanks, poking at stones and chasing frogs. The river Nalu was his favorite place, wild and ever-changing, like his thoughts. But that day, the river felt wrong. Its usual cheerful gurgle was replaced by a slow, dragging murmur. The water, once clear, looked bruised. He dipped his fingers in. Cold. Much colder than it should have been in the dry season. Birds flew overhead, not their usual pattern. They were darting erratically, as if chased by something unseen. Goosebumps crawled up his arms. "Strange," he muttered. And then the sky changed. The sun, still high, took on a reddish hue. The clouds thickened, though no rain fell. The very air felt tense, like a drum skin stretched too tight. Then came the figure. A woman, tall and slender, walking alone from the direction of the red hills. Her skin gleamed like polished obsidian. Her hair flowed down her back in soft waves. She wore no shoes. Her eyes were the color of burning leaves. She walked into Kehoro without saying a word. Dogs barked wildly, then backed away, tails between legs. Chickens scattered. A goat fainted clean onto its side. The villagers stopped what they were doing. A spoon clattered from a pot. A child dropped a mango. The stranger smiled gently. "My name is Imora," she said, her voice like cool river water. Ebo watched from the edge of the crowd, spellbound. By evening, the village buzzed with whispers. She came from the hills. That's where the Okoye are said to sleep. She has no bags. No family. No past. Did you see the cat? It bolted the moment she entered. But Ebo didn't believe in fear born from rumors. He had seen her, how she moved like the wind, how her eyes sparkled with sadness and secrets. She wasn't like the others. He was more. Later, he approached her as she sat near the great baobab. "Imora," he said softly, "I'm Ebo. You're welcome here." She looked up, her smile slow and knowing. "Am I?" "You're not the first stranger to come through Kehoro," he replied. "No," she said, voice low. "But I may be the last." Before he could respond, she stood and walked away, barefoot on stone, as if it didn't hurt her. That night, Ebo couldn't sleep. He sat outside his family hut, listening to the river's eerie whisper and staring at the red hills. Something about Imara stayed in his mind. Not just her beauty, but the way the world reacted around her. By the third day, things began to change. The banana trees rooted, their leaves curling inwards like clenched fists. Fish in the river floated belly up. The water turned cloudy, with patches of slime appearing like open sores. And yet, Imara helped wherever she could. She offered herbs for fevers. She soothed crying children. She even mended a broken cat with nothing but palm fronds and calm words. Many began to soften toward her. But others did not. Grandmother Muna watched Imara from afar, her old hands clutching her prayer beads. One afternoon, she summoned Ebo. "Child," she said, "that girl walks with the wind, but leaves no footprints. She pets the dog, and it runs." Ebo frowned. "She's done nothing wrong." "Not yet," Muna whispered. "But the wind tells me she's not what she seems." "You think she's Okoye?" "I think, even the earth knows fear when she is near." That night, a storm rolled over Kehoro, though no clouds could be seen. Just thunder rumbling in the ground, deep and distant. The goats screamed and broke from their pens. A baby was born early, with strange marks on her back. Ebo sat by the river again, heart heavy. From behind him came a soft voice. "Do you think I'm a monster?" Imara stood there, her face unreadable. Ebo hesitated. "I don't know." "That's fair," she said. She walked beside him and sat down, legs crossed like a child. "You don't have to be afraid of me," she said. "I'm not," Ebo lied. Imara smiled faintly. "Good. Because the others might not get the choice." She rose and walked away, her dress fluttering even without wind. In the morning, the village shrine was found cracked, the sacred stone split clean down the middle. An elder's chicken coop burned without fire. Ebo ran to Grandmother Muna, eyes wild. "You were right," he said. "She's not like us." Muna didn't smile in victory. She simply nodded. "It has begun." The whispers in the wind. The morning after the cracked shrine omen, life in Kehoro tried to march on. Millet still needed grinding, fish still needed drying, and children still wanted stories before bed. Yet every face carried a faint shadow, as if a storm cloud hovered just above the rooftops. A touch that mended. Imara's tent now stood near the eastern gate, stitched from palm fronds and red-dyed cloth. Nobody remembered giving her the fabric, somehow it had simply appeared. She spent her days helping, carrying water, weaving baskets, grinding herbs. One humid afternoon, a toddler named Kole collapsed with fever. His tiny body shook like a trapped bird, and his mother's cries rose over the village. The healer was a day's walk away. Panic spread faster than the sickness itself. Imara stepped forward, kneeling beside the boy. She placed one cool palm on his forehead, another over his heart, and began to hum a tune none had heard before, low and winding like a river through reeds. In moments Kole's trembling eased, sweat cooled, and color returned to his cheeks. He opened his eyes and reached for his mother. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some whispered miracle. Others whispered witchcraft. Imara only smiled, wiped the child's brow, and slipped away before thanks could find her. That night the air smelled of wet stone though no rain fell. 2 Elders in uneasy council. Under the great baobab, the elders gathered in a ring of flickering lanterns. Grandmother Muna leaned on her carved walking stick, her eyes, once the color of dark coffee, looked almost silver in the flame light. "Her hands cure," one elder murmured, "but at what price?" "She saved the boy," argued another, "perhaps the spirits favor her." Muna raised a thin finger for silence. "You praise the calm on the water," she said, "but you forget the crocodile hides beneath." She turned to her grandson, Ebo, who stood at the edge of the light. "Child, keep your distance." The wind carries mamas, and they speak your name. Ebo folded his arms. She's alone in a strange land. Should we not offer kindness first? Offer caution, Muna answered, her voice soft but immovable. Kindness without caution is a gate without a guard. 3. Dreams of scales and stone. That same night Ebo's sleep was shredded by visions. He wandered an endless desert of crimson sand where a colossal serpent shed skin after skin, each peeling layer forming a pale ghost that called out Ibilu. He woke drenched in sweat, the wind outside his hot hissing through bamboo walls like 1,000 dry leaves. 3 nights in a row the dreams returned. Always the serpent, always his name, always the sound of scales brushing sand. Each dawn he told himself it was only fear wearing the mask of sleep. Each dawn the mask felt thinner. 4. Stories without a home. On market day, Emara helped shell groundnuts near the well. Ebo approached, curiosity outweighing Muna's warnings. Do you ever miss home? He asked, handing her a calabash of sweet palm wine. A strange pause. Emara's eyes flickered, not with sadness, but with searching, as though she looked into a room she'd forgotten existed. I have no memory of my first morning, she said. Sometimes I see a house of red clay, but when I open the door, only fog waits. Perhaps I am a nomad of my own past. Ebo frowned. Then stay here. We can be your family. Emora's smile was warm, but her words were ice wrapped in velvet. Families keep ledgers of love and truth. Mine is still being tallied. As she turned away, a gust of wind spiraled dust around her feet in a tight coil before racing toward the river. The villagers crossed themselves. 5. Vanishing. The very next dawn the rooster didn't crow. By midday the rooster wasn't the only thing missing. Goats, chickens, even the fearless village cats, gone without footprints or feathers. Children whispered that the river reed swallowed them whole. That evening, a hunter named Dale found his hound, Sephew, by the waterside, cold, rigid, twisted into a perfect spiral as though some invisible python had practiced calligraphy with living ink. Dale's scream echoed over the floodplain. Ebo knelt beside the poor creature. No bite marks, only a single silver scale glinted near the river mud. He pocketed it before the others saw. Behind him, Emara watched with silent eyes that reflected the dying sun. 6. Wind that whispers. By now rumors had taken root like strangler figs. Emara could talk to spirits, Emara could turn into mist, Emora's shadow sometimes slithered though her feet stood still. Ebo tried to drown the talk with reason, but even he felt the air grow thick when she drew close. One dusk, while repairing fishing nets, Ebo heard his name float across the empty shore, soft but unmistakable. Ebo. He spun around. No one. The wind sighed through papyrus reeds. Again the voice came, layered, as if spoken by many tongues in unison. Ebo, the river remembers. Heart hammering, he backed away until water lapped at his heels. A shape gleamed beneath the surface, something long, pale, gliding upstream. Then it was gone. When he told Grandmother Muna, her shoulders sagged as though she carried a basket of stones. The Okoye call in dreams first, she said. When the dreamer listens, they answer with wind. 7. Confrontation beneath lantern light. The yearly night of stretching moons arrived at a festival when lanterns shaped like half-moons were strung from house to house, honoring a legend of renewal. Villagers gathered in color-dyed robes, music and laughter swirling like spices in hot broth. Emara joined the dance circle, moving with a liquid grace that both dazzled and unsettled. Drummers lost rhythm when she spun, a flute shattered mid-note. Grandmother Muna stepped forward, staff striking the earth. The music fell silent, as if every drum skin suddenly remembered it could refuse. Mona wawapi? Muna asked in the ancient tongue. Child, from where do you truly come? Emara tilted her head. From the road, as many do. Muna raised the silver scale Ebo had hidden but she'd somehow found. Moonlight poured over it in cold glory. Ghasts skittered through the crowd. Skin of a serpent, Muna intoned. Why does it follow your path? Imora drew closer, lantern lights rippled across her face like water over a dark stone. Because, she whispered, the river sheds its secrets for anyone who dares to look. Enough riddles, Muna said, her voice cracking like dry thunder. Speak your name, the name beneath this skin. Imora's smile widened, but it did not reach her eyes. She stepped back, palms open, and her words floated above the hush like drifting ash. The skin may lie, but the soul always knows. With that she turned, disappearing into the lantern haze before anyone dared move. The drums resumed, but slower, uncertain, like heart-skipping beats. It's Ebbo's choice. The festival ended early. Mothers rushed children inside. Doors barred. Fires doused. Only Ebbo stayed on the dark footpath, lantern in hand. He thought of Imora's kindness, of Kole healed, of lost goats, of twisted Sephiu. He thought of dreams and voices, scales and wind. Behind him, Grandmother Muna's hand fell on his shoulder. You cannot save what wears two truths, she said gently. One truth will always eat the other. Ebbo swallowed. If nobody tries, the darker truth wins by silence. Muna sighed, the sound of old paper tearing. Then guard your heart, child. Even thunderclouds begin as small whispers in the wind. Ebbo nodded, eyes fixed on the red hills glowing under a sliver moon. Somewhere out there, maybe in shadow, maybe in plain sight, Imora waited, wearing a skin woven from mysteries. The wind rose, curling around his ankles like a restless snake, and carried a single word into the night. Soon. A proposal carved in red light. Ebbo stood on the riverbank, lantern in hand, breath frosting even though it was the dry season. The blood moon's reflection wobbled on the water, turning the river Nalu into a ribbon of dark wine. Imora appeared behind him without a ripple of sound. You asked to meet me, she said, voice soft as ash drifting through air. Ebbo swallowed. His heart hammered so hard it felt like it might punch through his ribs and take the plunge first. I did, he managed. Imora. Stay with me. Here. Always. He fumbled a ring made from twisted copper wire and a tiny river pearl. It looked childish in his shaking palm. The moon painted her face red. Her eyes gleamed, slow flame behind smoked glass. Then she smiled, and the smile ran a chill straight down his spine. I accept, she whispered. A gust roared through the reeds, scattering silver scales, only Ebbo saw them, glinting then vanishing in the mud. But his joy drowned the warning. He slipped the ring on her finger. Overhead, the moon seemed to pulse. To a celebration laced with dread. Kehoro adored weddings, any excuse for drums and palm wine. The news spread faster than prairie fire. By midday every hut was plaiting garlands, cooking goat stew, stringing lanterns. Yet beneath the bustle, unease twitched like an eyelid. Grandmother Mune conferred with the oldest elders in a smoke-filled hut. They ground bitter herbs, knotted red cord, murmured prayers so ancient even the walls strained to comprehend. Blood moon, serpent bride, Muna muttered, tying a leather tongue around the carved bone charm. Old stories walk tonight. She beckoned her grandson inside. Ebbo ducked under the lintel, eyes shining with pride and something close to fear. Muna pressed a necklace into his hand, a lion-tooth pendant bound in copper wire. Wear this, she said. Ebbo glanced at the simple trinket. For luck. For truth, she corrected, voice like dry leaves. May it open your eyes when beauty tries to shut them. He nodded though he didn't fully understand and slipped it under his tunic. 3. The wedding of wind and scales. The ceremony took place on the village green, beneath the great baobab strung with crescent lanterns. Drummers thundered, dancers spun, children tossed marigold petals that landed like tiny tongues of flame. Imora appeared in a gown of ivory cloth that looked woven from moonlight and river mist. Ghasts followed her like shadows, half admiration, half terror. Animals kept their distance, even the goats refused the scattered grain. When the elder chanted the binding words, a cloud passed over the moon. Darkness gulped a clearing for a heartbeat. Lanterns flickered blue, then steadied. Only Grandmother Muna noticed the beads of sweat on Ebo's brow, the tremor in his fingers. Finally, the elder raised his staff. "Joined," he proclaimed. Cheers erupted. Flutes squealed. Yet the air felt strangely heavy, as if every breath had gained weight. After feasting, villagers drifted back to their huts. Laughter dwindled into chirps of night insects. Ebo led Imora toward the small bridal shelter near the river, heart pounding with excitement and a prickling dread he wouldn't name. For a smile that split the dark. Inside, a clay lamp cast honey-colored pools over woven mats. Imora knelt and removed the copper ring, studying it as if it were a fossil. "You offer me your heart," she said. "Do you offer your fear as well?" "My fear." Ebo laughed nervously. "Why fear the woman I love?" She lifted her gaze. In that moment the lamplight caught her eyes, no longer brown but molten gold, slit-pupilled. The room's temperature seemed to plummet. Ebo's breath hitched. He took a step back. The lion-tooth necklace grew hot against his skin, throbbing like a newly drummed talking skin. Imora stood. Her gown rustled without wind. "Do you hear it, Ebo? The land singing our names." He did hear something, a low hiss weaving through the rafters like flute notes made of sand. The lamplight sputtered. Shadows warped. Then skin rippled. 5 Revelation of the coils. Imora's arms elongated first, bones dissolving into fluid grace. Her spine arched, dress splitting seam by seam. Scales shimmered jade and silver across lengthening limbs. Hair braided itself into glistening tendrils. Her face broadened, nose flattened, eyes blazed amber brighter than the lantern. Ebo could not scream, sound jammed in his throat like clay. The lion tooth burned like a hot coal, instinct yanked it from under his tunic. White sparks skittered along the copper wire. The creature before him towered, neither woman nor beast but both, a serpent queen crowned in moonlight. Coils as thick as palm trunks unfurled, scraping the mat. Fangs glinted like wet daggers. Yet her voice remained velvet, echoing in his skull instead of his ears. "Husband." The word slid over him like ice water. She drew nearer, scales clicking. He stumbled against the wall. 100 years I have walked in skins, she hissed. The circle closes tonight. Give me the heartbeat promised. Somehow Ebo found his voice. You healed children, planted hope. An egg must be nestled before it hatches, she purred. Trust tastes sweeter before it is swallowed. Coils lunged. He dove sideways, her tail smashed a clay pot to shards. The necklace flared white. Where its light touched her scales, smoke hissed. She recoiled, eyes narrowing. Ancestor charms, she spat. Little bones rattling in empty threats. Ebo bolted through the door flap, mind screaming run run run. Behind him, timber groaned and splintered as her vast body pursued. 6 flight beneath the blood moon. Outside, red light bathed the village in nightmare hues. Ebo sprinted toward the shrines, necklace blazing like a fiery comet. Villagers, roused by crashing wood, leaned from doorways, only to retreat with cries when they saw the monster uncoiling after him. He reached the central stone circle, old as the hills, where elders whispered the ground itself listened. He collapsed to his knees, clutching the pendant. Ancestors, help me, he gasped. The lion tooth pulsed, then shattered. Fragments spiraled upward into sparks, forming a translucent shield around him, a lattice of light edged with swirling glyphs. Imora reared, towering above that dome like a living nightmare. She struck, Her snout slammed against the barrier with thunder. Light rippled but held. She struck again, shrieking such a note every lantern within sight burst, plunging the village into crimson darkness. Inside the dome, Ebo felt something vast flow through his veins, voices of bygone grandmothers, songs of long-buried chiefs, the thrum of drums carved from trees long turned to dust. For one breath, fear loosened its grip. Outside, Emara drew back, breathing hard, not from exhaustion, but rage. Another dawn will come, she hissed. The scales remember. She melted into mist, scales dissolving into flakes of moonlit dust, then shot upward, a streak of silver, vanishing beyond the baobab canopy. The barrier fizzled, sparks fluttering like dying fireflies. Ebo slumped forward, consciousness unspooling. His last sight was Grandmother Muna hobbling into view, tears on her cheeks, chanting words he did not recognize. His last thought was simple and round like a river stone. She is not done. Then blackness. 7 days of shadow. For 3 dawns Ebo lay in a fever that walked the knife edge between life and death. Villagers tended him in shifts, sponging his skin, holding his shivering hands. When he stirred, he spoke only one sentence, over and over, voice cracked like old pottery. She is not done. Muna sat beside him, stroking his forehead. The scales he had pocketed before the wedding were now grounded to powder, mixed with palm ash, and ringed around his cot as a ward. The elders sang prayers that trembled like distant thunder. On the 4th day, Ebo's eyes opened clear as river water after rain. He tried to rise, Muna pushed him gently back. She is gone, Muna soothed. For now. She warned me. His voice rasped. She'll return. We will be ready, Muna said, though her gaze slid to the door, as if expecting a shadow to slip under it at any moment. 8 signs in the ashes. Outside, the river Nalu ran normal again, clear but eerily silent. Yet small omens lingered, frogs with silver flecks on their backs, lilies blooming black at twilight, and one night the moon rose pale, bearing a single crimson slash across its face. Ebo stood by the riverbank, lion-tooth shards in a pouch at his belt. His body still ached, his spirit felt older. Somewhere beyond the tree line, maybe far beyond the hills, Emora coiled, gathering strength. He heard Grandmother Muna's cane tapping behind him. She joined him without a word. Together they watched the river flow, pretending peace while listening for the hiss beneath the current. After a long silence Muna spoke. The moon sets, the serpent sleeps, but the story walks on. Ebo nodded, lips dry. She is not done. Muna placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. Neither are we. Ashmoon dawn. Ebo's fever broke under a dawn sky the color of ashes. Grandmother Muna sat beside him all night, humming songs older than the hills while burning threads of dried ginger and snakeroot. As the first faint light slipped through the thatch, she mixed river sand with crushed kola and touched the paste to his brow. Ebo's eyes fluttered open. He gasped, like someone returning from deep water, and met her gaze. Welcome back, Muna whispered, voice hoarse. The wind almost carried you off. Did it, rain? He croaked. Muna only tilted a calabash so he could drink. Outside, the village drums were silent, birds too. The whole world seemed to be holding its breath. 2 counsel of shaken hearts. By afternoon Ebo could stand. Muna guided him to the great baobab where the village council huddled, faces drawn tight as bowstrings. Wind rattled dry pods overhead like bone castanets. Ebo told everything, the blood moon proposal, the serpent form, the ancestral shield, Emora's warning. His words spilled out like river water over broken banks. Some elders crossed themselves, others frowned, lips stained with doubt. Love clouds a young man's eyes, muttered Elder Beaver. Perhaps he saw only shadows and fancy. As if to answer, a messenger rushed into the clearing, panting. The West Grove, he gulped, trees are dying black from the roots. Another ran up behind him. Red water fell from the sky near the millet fields, like rain, but thick as goat's blood. A third breathless youth shouted, "Snakes!" Scores of them, coiled around the grain store, they don't strike, they just watch. Silence fell, heavy as a felled tree. Grandmother Mona straightened. "Will shadows kill trees? Will fancy paint the clouds in blood?" Her old eyes blazed. Doubt cracked like thin ice. 3. The Pact of Nalu. Elder Kofi, keeper of law, shuffled forward with a scroll of antelope hide. He touched its edge as one might touch a spear tip. "A tail buried too long," he said. When the first Okoye rose, the river Nalu itself birthed guardians, spirits of stone and root and storm. They drove the serpents beneath the hills and sealed them by oath. In return, we offer one life every century, a willing heart, to renew the bond. Mama's report. Most villagers had never heard this pact, those who did thought it bedtime legend. The last offering, Kofi continued, was given by our foregrandfathers. 100 years have nearly rolled. The bond wanes, the scales return. Ebo felt the lion-tooth shards at his belt grow warm, as if agreeing. Muna's gaze lifted to the red hills. "Then we must go to the sacred stone grove and wake the guardians of Nalu." She looked at the circle of elders, then at the wide-eyed youths crowding behind, hunters, fishermen, potters' apprentices, or clutching spears or staffs more for courage than for war. "Who will walk with me?" she asked. Ebo stepped forward. "I will." 6 village youths joined him, including tall, quick-smiling Safina, who could climb a baobab faster than a lizard, broad-shouldered Django, famed for wrestling crocodiles, small ones, but he never mentioned size, and gentle Tono, whose flute could calm angry bees. For into the withered forest. They set out at daybreak, Muna leaning on her staff, Ebo at her side. The path to the stone grove cut through forest once lush but now sickly. Leaves hung limp, veins dark. Ashy mold furred the bark like funeral shouts. Snakes watched from branches, dozens, maybe hundreds, silent, unmoving. Their eyes glowed dimly, reflections of some foul fire. Safina muttered, "Feels like the forest is breathing wrong." Django gripped his spear tighter. "If one of those things twitches, I'll pin it to the bark." "Be polite," Mune chided gently. "These woods listen." A wind stirred, hot and sour, stinging the eyes. In it they heard faint music, a lilting hum too smooth to be natural. The hairs on Ebo's arms stood up. 5 Temptation in the thicket. At a bend where the undergrowth thickened, mist poured across the path. From within the veil stepped Imara, or what looked like her. She wore a cloak of pale scales that shimmered like dew. "Ebo," she called, voice soft as rotted silk. "You look tired, love. Come to me, rest." The youths raised weapons, but Imara ignored them, studying Ebo alone. "You tasted the guardian's fire," she cooed. "It burns, doesn't it? I can soothe that pain. Let the old ways fade, walk the world with me, free of dusty promises." Ebo's heartbeat thundered. For an instant he smelled river lotus and remembered her laughter before the night of fangs. The broken part of him yearned to believe her smile. Grandmother Mona spoke a single sharp word in the old tongue. Ebo felt it like a slap of cold water. He shook his head. "I will not trade my people for comfort." Imora's eyes hardened to gold coin edges. "So be it." She raised a hand, the mist roiled into serpents of vapor that snapped at the group, hissing. Safina held a burning brand, and the shapes fled, smoke meeting smoke. When it cleared, Imara was gone. But where she'd stood, the grass lay dead in a perfect ring. 6 stone sentinels. By twilight they reached the stone grove, a clearing of monoliths set in a rough circle like giant wolf teeth, each stone veined with quartz that caught the dying light. At the center rose a single altar rock carved with swirling glyphs of river fish, thunderclouds, and coiling serpents bound by vines. Elder Kofi, who had pushed his weary bones this far, unfurled the pack scroll. Blood, breath, and song, he recited. 3 keys to waking the guardians. He drew a blade of obsidian and nicked his palm. Blood dripped onto the altar, seeping into the grooves as though the stone drank. Tono lifted his flute. A mournful melody wound through the dusk, threading between stones. The air thickened, expectant, humming. Muna stepped forward last, staff planted before the altar. Her voice rose in a chant Ebo had never heard, syllables crackling with lightning. The ground trembled, the quartz veins glowed. But the light soon flickered, dimming like an ember stabbed of air. It is not enough, Kofi gasped. The bond is too weak. All eyes turned to Muna. She smiled, tired, tender. One life willingly given, she quoted. That is the root. Ebo's breath hitched. No. She cupped his cheek. Her hand felt oddly light, as if she had already begun to turn into memory. Child, I have walked the circle many times. You must still finish yours. Tears blurred his vision. We'll find another way. There is no other, she whispered. Guardians sleep unless fed by love willing to burn itself to ash. Safina sobbed. Django bit his knuckle. Even the stones seemed to lean closer. Muna set her staff aside, drew a small dagger of river glass, and sliced her palm deeply. Blood flowed rich and dark onto the altar. She sang again, this time her voice was 2 voices, hers and something vast, echoing. Light burst from the grooves, leaping to each monolith. The stones shuddered, split, and shapes stepped free, tall beams of bark and granite, river spray swirling for hair, as like polished agate. Their footsteps rumbled thunder. Ebo knelt, heart breaking, as Muna's knees buckled. Guardians of Nalu, she breathed, bind your power to this youth, that he may stand against the scaled knight. The tallest guardian touched a cedarbark hand to her brow. Light surged through her, and into Ebo. He cried out as warmth and sorrow and ancient strength flooded his veins. Muna's body fell gently, settling against the altar like a leaf. Her eyes closed, peaceful. Ebo's grief keen through the dusk, a sound sharper than any spear. 7 A mantle of river and stone. The guardians ringed him. One spoke without moving lips, voice like water over basalt, rise, chosen of the pact. Ebo stood. Blue-green light haloed his skin. He felt the forest roots, the river current, even distant thunder inside his chest, an orchestra of earth. The guardian continued, blood given, bond renewed. Through you we act. Ebo wiped his tears. Then act we shall. He lifted Muna's staff, quartz tips along its length now glowed like embers. He turned to his friends, their faces streaked with tears and awe. Safina, Django, Tono, time to finish what she began. From the forest edge came a low hiss that shook leaves from branches. Imora's silhouette appeared, only now her outline towered, serpentine coils glimmering in moonrise. So, she purred, the old woman buys you tricks. Will you squander them here, or wield them against me? Ebo planted the glowing staff. Roots burst from the earth, weaving into a living shield before the youths. Behind him, the guardians advanced, eyes bright as storm lanterns. Imora's laugh slithered across the grove. The moon is waning, boy. When it swells again, I will feast. Her shape dissolved into shadow and slithered away, leaving scorched grass and the smell of venom. 8 Vigil for the rising storm. Night deepened. A gentle rain began, no more, clean water this time, washing red dust from leaves. But at the forest edge, lightning flickered with no thunder, as if someone were sharpening knives behind a curtain. The guardians took up silent watch around the grove. Ebo stood over Muna's resting form, hand on the staff. His grief still ached, but beneath it burned steady resolve, Muna's final gift. Safina squeezed his shoulder. When the serpent returns, she'll find more than a village boy. She'll find the river, the forest, "And every storm that ever loved this land," Ebo answered. He looked toward the red hills, where distant clouds paused sickly green. Somewhere out there, Imara gathered power, and the final dance approached. "Let her come," he whispered. "We are awakened." The serpent's last dance. One the day the sun went dark. 6 weeks after Grandmother Muna's sacrifice, the village of Kahoro woke beneath a sky that felt wrong, too still, too bright, like an eye refusing to blink. Birds fell silent. Goats refused grass. Even the river current slowed, as if holding its breath. Elder Kofi watched the eastern horizon. "An eclipse," he whispered. "Sun and moon will wrestle today." Ebo, staff in hand, quartz veins glowing in its back, felt the guardians of Nalu stirring inside him, roots humming underfoot, river water drumming in his veins, wind tasting the world like a hunter's tongue. His heart answered in steady beats. Safina, Django, and Tono tightened the circle of stones and ash they had prepared at the village border, ash from burned serpent scales, stones carved with runes by the guardians themselves. Children thought it a strange new fence. Adults knew it was a last defense. Then the light began to dim. Shadows sharpened. Day turned to twilight, and the hot air cooled as though night had slipped its cloak over the world wrong side out. A hiss, low, distant, endless, roared across the plain. "She is coming," Ebo said. To return of the scaled queen. From the red hills poured a tide of dust, whipped into spirals by invisible wings. At its heart slithered Imora, no longer hiding in human skin. She rose to her full height, towering, jeweled scales flashing black and emerald beneath the half-dark sun. Golden eyes burned like twin furnaces. Villagers cried out, some dropped to knees in prayer, others grabbed spears though they knew wood could not pierce stone-hard serpent hide. Yet none fled. Not today. The last promise of Grandmother Muna held them firm. Imora's voice boomed, yet slithered, "Ibilu. Your soul sings to me. I have come to claim it." Ebo stepped beyond the outer huts, staff planted. Guardians materialized at his back, spirits of bark and granite, river spray hair whipping in eclipse wind. Forest spirits glided on root feet, eyes glowing moss green. The river Nalu itself rose in columns like liquid pillars, shaped by unseen hands. Imora's lips peeled into a smile full of polished daggers. "You bring your toys," she coiled, muscles rippling. "I bring eternity." Three clashed beneath the black sun. The battle began with silence breaking like glass. Imora struck first, tail lashing, cracking the earth. A guardian of stone blocked the blow, granite shattered, shards skittering like meteors. Another guardian answered, summoning living vines to ensnare her. She flexed, vines snapped, green ribbons turning brown in midair. Safina hurled flaming spears, Django rolled drums carved from thunder trees, sending shockwaves that staggered smaller serpents slithering in Imora's wake. Tono's flute poured melodies that rippled through water columns, shaping them into whips of liquid light that scored Imora's scales. The serpent queen hissed, venom spraying in arcs that burned soil to black glass. She reared, opened jaws wider than a doorway, and loosed a sound deeper than any drum, a roar that made stone tremble and eardrums bleed. Several guardians staggered, one crumbled into gravel. But Ebo stood firm. Staff raised, he called to river, forest, sky. A cyclone of leaves and water spiraled around him, fusing into a shield of shimmering mist. On the count of 3, he shouted. Safina and Django locked eyes, nodded. 1, 2, 3. Tono's flute cut through the roar, notes spinning into a sharp whistle. The guardians heaved mighty slabs of runestone, tipping them inward to complete the sacred circle of ash. Imora lunged, lightning quick, but vines and water lashes yanked her back just enough. The circle snapped shut, white-hot lines erupting around her, ash igniting in blue flame. Imora was inside. For dance of stone and ash. Imora shrieked, rattling bones miles away. She struck the barrier of flame it held, though ripples of force cracked nearby hot clay walls. Her coils smashed again and again, yet the second only glowed brighter, lines of power weaving upward into a lattice shaped like a spider's web. Still, she was not beaten. She gathered hurricane winds with a flick of her tail, twisting sky into a black funnel aimed at Ebo. Guardians braced, the funnel slammed the barrier, sent spirals of dust and debris cascading across fields. But the circle did not break. Inside, Emara's scales began to dull, edges blurring, like metal losing polish. She roared, voice raw, "You bind me, yet I endure." Ebo knew she spoke truth, the circle could hold her, not end her. To finish the work, the ritual called for balance, stone to steal the serpent, bread to seal the stone. He stepped to the edge, staff glowing white. Safina gasped, "Ebo, no." But he held a hand for calm. "Guardians of Nalu," he called, "my life is yours to wield." A guardian of River Spray shook its misty head, "Your heart is pledged, but your life must live. The circle asks not for your death, only your breath." Ebo nodded, trusting. He raised the staff, drew in a single deep breath, then blew across the burning ash. His breath shimmered silver, weaving through blue flame like quicksilver thread. The lattice paused, then turned to solid light. Imara struck once more, and her coil froze mid-whip. Another twist, froze. Scale by scale, motion slowed, as though time itself congealed. Her eyes flared. "Stone may hold, but spirits roam," she snarled. Ebo's voice cracked but rang true. "Then stone will remind every spirit what awaits." He slammed the staff into the ground. The final pulse burst outward, wave after wave of quiet thunder rolling across the plains. When the light faded, Emara stood silent, a gargantuan serpent statue, scales petrified into green-veined marble, gold eyes locked in eternal glare. At that same moment, the eclipse passed. Light spilled back across sky and field. Birds exhaled first tentative chirps. River columns melted into normal flow, guardians stepped away, melting into earth and water, duties fulfilled for now. 5 after the roar. Villagers approached, wary, until they saw the motionless colossus. Or replaced terror. Children whispered, "She's asleep." Elders answered, "She's remembering why she should not wake." Safina wiped tears, of relief, grief, triumph all tangled. Django patted Ebo's shoulder with a hand that once wrestled crocodiles yet trembled now. Tono played a soft, low melody, sending thanks to unseen spirits. Ebo rested against the staff. His chest ached, from exhaustion, from giving breath that still felt partly gone, but his eyes were steady. Elder Kofi addressed the gathered crowd. "The serpent is sealed, not slain. Stone can crack. Time can cheat. We must remain keepers of the circle." He pointed to the statue glaring at horizon edge. "Let her stand where all can see, a warning carved by our own courage." Cheers did not erupt, instead, a solemn hush swept through the people, respect deeper than celebration. 6 roots of new stories. Seasons turned. Rains returned lush and clear. Dead trees sprouted fresh green. Livestock birthed healthy kids, fields of millet bowed gold again. Each sunrise, the stone serpent caught dawnlight, scales glittering like frost on jade. Children played near but never touched. Mothers left small bowls of river water and maize at its base, offerings of peace, reminders of vigilance. Ebo healed slowly. His staff's quartz glowed less now, power rested dormant, waiting. Guardians no longer walked in visible form, yet Ebo felt them, in the whisper of leaves, in river hush, in the rumble beneath soil when storms rolled close. One evening, under a generous moon, villagers gathered at the great baobab. Ebo sat where grandmother Muna once sat, children crowding at his feet, grown-ups forming rings beyond. He cleared his throat. His voice, soft, sure, slipped into the night air. "There was once a girl who wore beauty like a mask and silence like perfume. She walked among us under the red hills, and her smile hid fangs. Children gasped, elders listened, nodding slowly. But the land, the river, and the hearts of brave souls stood against her hunger. They wove roots and water into chains stronger than fear. As he spoke, the wind carried the tale outward, across sleeping fields, around the silent statue, through reeds of the river Nalu, so that even stones seemed to lean in. When the story ended, he added the final line grandmother used to whisper. The skin may be stone, but the spirit still stirs. Remember this, so your courage never sleeps. 7 Legacy of the Moonlit Staff. Years passed. Visitors from distant villages came to see the petrified serpent and hear the tale from Ebo's lips. He never charged coin. Only asked them to carry the story home, to warn their children that charm can clothe danger, and that courage often wears simple skin. Safina became chief builder of Kehoro, carving new homes with runes of protection. Django taught wrestling not just of beasts but of fear itself. Tono's flute guided festivals, each melody weaving echoes of guardians' voices. And Ebo. He walked the border at dusk, staff tapping rhythm with his heartbeat. Sometimes he paused by the stone serpent, touching rough cold scales. In moonlight he almost saw the marble chest rise, almost heard a distant hiss. But every time he planted the staff, the night air cooled, and silence returned. He would smile then, not in triumph but in understanding. For now stone held. For now children slept safe. Yet he never let the staff gather dust. It ending, but not end. On Ebo's 50th year, a curious boy asked, "Guardian, are you never afraid she might wake?" Ebo chuckled, lines creasing kind eyes. "Of course I'm afraid. But fear is a drum. Feel it, and you can dance to its beat, or freeze." The boy frowned. "So we keep dancing?" "We keep dancing," Ebo said, tapping the sun-warmed earth. "We keep telling. We keep listening to wind, to river, to elders and children alike." He looked toward the horizon where sunset painted serpent stone, amber and rose. "Stories," he said, "are circles. They turn so lessons won't drift away." Night came gently, with stars like seeds scattered on new soil. And somewhere between starlight and shadow, the faintest tremor touched the marble coils, so slight a sparrow wouldn't notice. But Ebo felt it. He smiled, planted his staff, and began the tale once more.